Well, I think we'll get started. My co-chair is not here. He should be dialing in soon, but I think we can get started. So hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the March meeting for the ACC eDiscovery and Information Governance Interest Group. One of the topics, or basically the topic we had today is to go over the Maturity Model 2.0 that came out and look at the DE&I maturity model and see what that looks like. Hey, Jack. How are you? There he is. Excellent. So before we get into the topic, though, just want a couple announcements. So this will be my last meeting as chair. Starting in April, Jack Thompson will be the chair of this interest group. So please feel free to welcome him. He's been co-chair for a year. So congratulations, Jack. Welcome to chair. And I believe you're still looking for a co-chair. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if there's anyone that knows of interest to be a co-chair for this interest group, please feel free to reach out to Jack, and he'd be happy to have you as co-chair. And just know, co-chair, if you're co-chair for a year, then you automatically become chair of the interest group the following year. It's a great opportunity to lead meetings, discussions, and topics for ACC. So definitely, if you have interest, please feel free to reach out to Jack. Another interest is I'm going to be transferring to a different role starting Friday. So this may be my last ACC meeting unless I continue with the membership. So I'm took another opportunity to do a digital assurance. So CSV quality and digital, making sure things are validated and compliant at the same time. Expanded leadership role. So I will be no longer with Takeda. So that's another announcement that I have. So that's going on. So lots of transition going on at the same time, not only with ACC, but myself personally for a job role. So thank you very much. And that's what I have. Now, Jack, I know we wanted to start off with maturity model and DE&I. What was the other topic you had in mind afterwards? I know you had.
I think in addition to that, we were going to cover potential new topics for the rest of the year, as well as ongoing interest in getting more clarity for our organization's general dynamics and where to fit. So, yeah.
Yes, and that's a great point. If you do have additional topics that you want to bring up in these meetings, a lot of times we do roundtables, presentations for this hour meeting at third Wednesday every month. So please feel free to reach out to Jack for any additional topics that you have. So for the first topic about the maturity models, we'll just take a look. I'm going to share my screen. If you haven't already, on the ACC website, you can download, if you are a member, of course, you can download the Maturity Model 2.0 and the new DEI model as well. So let me just share my screen. I have the first one, just the Maturity Model 2.0. So the way it's laid out, I think most of you have been familiar with version 1.0. It's similar to the same topics. You have change management and communication, contract management, eDiscovery, external resources management, financial management, information governance or records management, innovation management, IP management, internal resources management, knowledge management, metrics and analysis, process and project management, strategic planning and legal operations leadership, and technology management. And then for each of those topics, it goes through your early stage intermediates and your advanced stage. So it gives you a point of where you are or where you want to consider yourselves being based on the maturity model growth and based on the topics there. So I don't know if anyone has had a chance to read the maturity model updates, the differences between 1.0 versus 2.0. But I just want to get your thoughts on what your thoughts were for the rewrite of 2.0 and any things that you liked or did not like with the rewrite. So does anyone have any thoughts? Anybody take a look at the maturity model yet?
I've only looked at it briefly. We're considering using it as a new baseline for we're launching a new DNI initiative in the US for our legal department as from both an internal as well as external perspective. So right now we're just in like data gathering mode, but so far from our perspective, it's a good internal baseline for us to use rather than like the ABA one, which is more geared towards outside counsel.
Right.
It's hard though, because we're a European company, so it does mesh, but does not mesh with our global interests.
Gotcha. Anybody else? Is anybody else leveraging the maturity model or plan to leverage the 2.0 maturity model that just came out?
This is Elaine Russell. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen it yet. Do you have it handy where you could maybe put it up on the screen and look at it? So
yes, I can you see my screen right now?
no.
No? Okay. Let's see. Okay. So this is a document that if you're a member, you can download from the ACC website. And I just went over the topics here. Let me just scroll back up real quick. So here's how it's broken down. It's maturity model by function. And these are different functional areas that the maturity model is broken down. Now in version 1, it was similar. They had, okay, if you were a beginning in the maturity model or early in the stages, these are the things that you may have in place for that specific function or topic. And then you have intermediate and then advanced, right? Kind of how far you've come along. So it's basically, okay, in these topics, this is where, if you're early in the development for your maturity model, this is what you may have already. But then if you want to get to somewhere else more advanced, here's what you probably should have in place for it. And the purpose of the rewrite for 2.0, 1.0 was a little bit outdated because of all the advances with technology, everything going digital. So a lot of things have changed in the past couple of years. So ACC had sponsors to help rewrite the maturity model 2.0 in the different functional areas. And this is the result. And if you do need the link to where it's located on ACC, I can send that out as well. And Jack, I don't know if you can navigate to that while we're speaking, but you can always, if you can send out those links. It should be on the same site. If not, I can send it out later for the meeting.
I found it.
Okay.
Put it out in the chat.
So, I mean, I guess for my thoughts, it's a great that they rewrote it. And, I think in these different functions, some things may work better for some companies and other companies for different topics. And some may be in different places in terms of maturity for these different functions or topics. But it's a good guide to say, okay, if I want to be advanced, this is what I want to get to. And, how you're going to do it, well, that could be different ways of how to do it, right? You can implement a different IP software to manage your IPs or what have you, right? But it's kind of, okay, what do I need to do to make sure or to say that I'm an advanced or mature in this part or function of the maturity model. So I do think it's a handy guide. And switching roles like I'm doing, it's actually a nice guide because you can leverage that for different functions as well, right? I mean, for metrics and analysis, some of the stuff may be similar for metrics and analysis in another area. So financial management, maybe some of the finance management and legal is similar to other functions in the industry as well. Now, I'm just speaking for pharma in general, but the government industry and all the other different industries as well, oil and gas, et cetera. So that's my thoughts on maturity model. Anybody else have any thoughts or?
I think I kind of want to read through it just to see what it says for each of these different functional areas, but just looking at it, I mean, it sure looks like legal operations to me.
Sure. Okay. All right, excellent. All right. I've read it, and actually I didn't really see an announcement that it was on the ACC website myself, so I actually had to dig through it and find it. But so that's a great resource and guide to have. In addition, let's see if I can switch over.
Just gonna say, I can see where this would like come in handy. Like, I don't feel like everybody in our legal department really understands what legal operations is. And I feel like this could be handy to, help others understand what it is that we do.
Sure.
And things that we should, and even when you're trying to make a play to maybe get other areas of legal, operational things in your purview, I think something like this would be helpful as well. I mean, for example, I was looking at getting, I really wanted small projects or, projects to just come under me in general. And that was a real big sticking point for, we had, somebody that really didn't want to give up the small project resources to come and report up under me. And they still don't to this day because they made an argument that it isn't operations. And I think that's just kind of one of those things that shows that clearly process and project management is an operational function.
That's right. No, I agree. I think it's a great guide and in regards to legal operations and how to, and you can see, okay, where am I in the maturity model that where do I fall, and where do I need to go, or what do I have currently? It's kind of great to assess your current state, what you have in each of these topics. If taking a step back.
I feel like the one thing too that's missing from here is like outside counsel management. Like all the legal ops people I know, that's like a big piece of their job. Just the billing and the rate review process every year, the engagements, data protection assessments, all of that is like a big piece of the job.
I think it's under external resources management.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's kind of a hybrid between external resources management and financial management. So as kind of like, I agree what you said. I'm actually utilizing the maturity model. We just onboarded a new person in my group, and I think we're all suffering from like the talent shortage, but she's a data analyst and her job is to be, a data manager, but she has absolutely no experience in legal. Hence why we're in a talent shortage. So I'm trying to supply her with information to say, well, this is what the environment is like. So this is actually a really great opportunity to showcase how someone new coming into what legal ops is without being there. It really kind of projects it. So I'm trying to download this right now. It's not. Membership needs to be renewed. Yeah. One of the focuses though of the new update is, I think where maybe someday from an improvement perspective, the long-term planning and the strategic planning, legal operations leadership piece, I think that's very evolutionary because now that we're coming off of COVID, and it's just an example, I think lawyers are getting back to their old habits, where operations is, we were tasked with managing in like an ultimate change. Then now all of a sudden they're slowly making us go back to the office and so forth. So now our lawyers are expecting a different level of service of what they once maybe had. So we're trying to find the best like hybridized or new method of leading them from an operational standpoint. So I'm hopeful that over the next couple of years, this particular section will be more and more important. And as it matriculates down to all the other pieces, I think they should be refreshed every 2 years and given your environment.
Any other thoughts, maturity model? I assume many of you have not read the maturity model yet and are just downloading it. And Jack, I think on the similar page, the DEI maturity model is on there too.
Looking for it right now.
And if you haven't seen the DEI maturity model, it's similar in regards to the maturity model 2.0, and they broke it down into 3 overall topics: strategy and organizational development, internal and external. So with internal, what do you do internally for recruiting and onboarding, retaining and succession planning? And external, how, incentives and consequences, community engagement as well. So I do like how they broke that up in the different topics of internal and external, and then the overall strategy. So, and to your point, I got to read this a little bit more in detail. But overall, when I first glanced at it, I did think it was a real nice draft, and actually was a part of reviewing some of it in the beginning when it was first in draft form. So it's great that it took and it kind of made its way into this format and developed into this foundation maturity model. So everybody else get a chance to read the DEI maturity model?
Quick glance.
Okay. If you find the link, Jack, for this one as well, please do send it out.
Yeah, here I got it right now, right in front of me. Sorry, Al, my computer decided to blow up on Friday, and I'm working off a loaner right now, and it literally is the slowest thing next to a snail. So I apologize for connectivity issues.
Hi, it's Mike with Expedia here. We started to look at this as a way to feed into we have a pretty robust program that's been underway before this model came out. So I've tried to just use it as a guide really to see if there are things we're not currently doing that we should be, or that others are doing. But it is nice to have a separate reference dedicated to DE&I for sure. Agreed.
And I do think both maturity models are great guides as you go along to see what's, is it gaps, or what am I not doing, or am I in the early part of the maturity model versus the advanced. So it's a good kind of goalposts and moving goalposts. And as you know, these maturity models, they get updated every so often because things change, like technology, et cetera. So, moving to digital, moving, for that regard. So I do think these are definitely updated at least every few years. I think ACC is trying to update them to keep them fresh. Anything more on the DEI model, maturity model? Just want to go over those resources and guides if you haven't seen them already. Definitely take a look at them. And because they're definitely useful resources and tools to have. All right, Jack, you had some other topics as well, right? So I'll let you get to your topics.
So I mean, it's really not like a formal topic to really get out there other than just pressure test for the coming year. If there's anything that this group really would like to focus in on in the realm of eDiscovery or information governance. I just thought of a very interesting trend, the role of the privacy analyst and how that's becoming something that we who work in InfoGov have to deal with. So it's something of an interest. I just saw a posting from another colleague of mine. His company's hiring for a privacy analyst, and I just had a very long conversation with one of my internal colleagues about the role of having to get one for multiple purposes, especially in contract management. So I'm just wondering how much that's going to become a new topic of conversation. Other than that, I don't want to be the harbinger of death for Microsoft any further. They know they're wrong, but at the same time, what's the best way when we can work with them? But also, Legal Week was last week. I'm not sure if anyone was in New York City and able to attend. It was actually really good. It wasn't as crowded, but there were some interesting technologies out there that really do focus in on information governance, where it applies for both record, or actually information analysis for record keeping, as well as eDiscovery. So there were just some interesting paradigms there. Also some workflow engines, which were pretty cool. A little bit different from your typical matter management and eDiscovery management system. So generally just good to see, especially for preservation in place and working within the various different information sources. So that was actually really helpful. Gives me ideas in terms of how to tackle certain situations as they come up, especially with Teams and Slack and other, I guess, I know it's an old term, but Internet of Things, where data is digital and available. And also how to hook into your existing records management systems, which I think is really good, especially considering a lot of companies are moving towards pushing towards a paperless environment. So skiffs of paper boxes are up for destruction. And do we have to keep them under legal hold any further? Can we get rid of them? Can we, what's the purpose at this point, considering they're not being touched? So a lot of governance issues there. Like, how do we make that argument to say that one sheet of paper and one box is not going to be really relevant unless it's already been identified, in which case that box will never be found anyway. So age-old question, right? So I think that would be an interesting topic review, to see some of the technologies that are out there that are starting to really tackle this business. And finally, where are we looking to push our maturity model to? I'll be the first one to admit, we did have some good cadence at one point for making the updates, but I don't know where it landed. We do have some assistance from our business partners in this area, but it sort of just got lost. I think there were a lot of things going on. So we'll resume those. But if there's, I guess you could say, if you take a look at the InfoGov maturity model now and have comments to say, well, maybe this isn't work, or this is post-COVID, so this isn't really necessarily applicable anymore. What would be your thoughts? And try to spruce it up a little bit so it's a little bit more, I guess you could say a little bit more modern, but still the principles are still there. I don't think a lot of the principles are changing. I just think I like to say the covering on the couch just needs to change. That's it. Just needs to be reupholstered, but you're keeping the couch. Other than that, really not much else, unless anyone has anything like really hot topic right now that we're gonna like get out there. If not, I will continue blithering around with some anecdotes about legal week and the fun shenanigans that occurred, and also some other resources that some folks might be interested in terms of where to go for certain problems. Anything from anyone? No? Okay. One thing I'd like to mention, just as kind of like a public service for my colleagues, if you're looking for certain, actually, this was posed to me as a question. It's sort of like a crowdsourcing, but trying to crowdsource for a different purpose differently. A group of fellows that run more or less like an advocacy group with dedicated sponsors are trying to find the best way to communicate their advocacy for their providers, but with a really solid group of people. Not with the intention to buy the services, but more or less to expose them to a network of services that are available. So while we have ACC, we have other conferences and other associations. This is sort of like a direct marketing. And I thought, that's actually not a bad idea, because you can actually get like a group of potential customers in a room and actually hash out what it is they want, and just pay for a weekend in Vegas. That'd be fun, but without violating any compliance rules. But it was really interesting because some of the sponsors that they had, I knew all of them, but I'm like, well, they really don't have anything that's really that stellarly interesting other than you talking to me about them. So what is it that I can give you better? What kind of feedback can I give you better in terms of marketability and so forth? So in the eDiscovery space, and even in the InfoGov space, I think this is more or less very relevant, because a lot of companies are starting to be very static with either their growth or their ability to innovate. But on the flip side, they take care of us for our needs, whether it be software or services. So it's usually, well, we want you to be a little bit more innovative, but we don't want you to lose any of the services. And by the way, don't increase your prices. So it was an interesting look and feel and how this group actually worked, because you could actually give direct feedback to the vendor without having to talk to the vendor. So it's really kind of cool. So if anyone's ever interested in something like that, let me know. Happy to set up a meeting. It doesn't cost anything other than 30 minutes of your time. From a eDiscovery perspective, and at Legal Week, I saw someone finally listened to something I said, which is really amazing. Two providers actually took a comment that I used at a Prex conference and actually built something. And I was quite proud of, like, wow, someone actually paid attention and they actually did what I asked. And I said, wow, that's going to win business for me, because it was just a notion that I threw out there and then they actually made it happen. So kudos to Lineal, and kudos to the other company, I'm not mentioning them right now because I have an RFP with them. But nevertheless, it was really kind of cool to see how the use of privilege contextual analytics really came forward. And I think a lot of companies are realizing, like, when you're going through eDiscovery and your privilege list is exhaustive, what can you put as a baseline versus what can you specialize? So I actually looked at what Lineal did, and they formed a baseline for, I think, over 3,000 law firms in their privilege bank, and also historical ones. So they got like the past at least 10 years. That's quite impressive. And put it into a contextual analytics model. So therefore, when we run search terms, there's various different ways of picking apart the hits and really reducing down the amount of overall privilege review that would need to be done. And the contextual analytics for other things such as, highly specialized terms was actually very easy. Yes, they use the Enron data, which is kind of boring. But apparently now the new data to use is Harry Potter data. So a lot of contextual analytics programs and demos are done with the content from the Harry Potter novels. So it was actually kind of cool to see how many things Dumbledore really did. Regardless, that was really good. So if anyone's ever interested in tackling the issue of how to reduce down your document review with privilege and using more analytic models to basically save yourself time and effort, let me know. I'm happy to make some introductions. I don't get anything from them, but it's like, this is innovation and this is what we look for. So I'm happy to share the knowledge and make sure everyone gets at least exposure. And vice versa. If you've seen something and want to show me, by all means, let me know. But overall, good show, good seeing some really cool stuff. Another interesting recap was I saw some workflow tools that were kind of more advanced than like your on it or actually honestly only one I could compare it to, but it was a little bit more of a smaller field, but it was good because it was definitely more stylized. And they said, no, we're not going to build anything for you, but we'll be able to find ways to connect things for you. So taking things that have been built and making connections and working a workflow was actually really interesting to hear. And there's a little bit more transparency in the conversation. So overall, from a legal ops perspective, when you're faced with trying to connect processes together using technology as well as certain databases, it's good to know that like some companies are out there, they're not going to overcomplicate it. They actually just have a more direct approach. And they will either ad hoc provide you a developer or essentially say, you can do it yourself, but here's the platform and here's how the APIs work, but you can all keep it in one place. So that was kind of interesting, especially now that we're going through a lot of information categorization and how to position certain workflows for certain areas within legal ops. So like contracts as it relates to risk assessment and privacy, and then who keeps the information. Law firm engagement was definitely a use case that was really easy to pick out. Same with legal hold management and case management in terms of the eDiscovery operations. So when we have a case, the intake is already like put together, and then the intake basically triggers certain mechanisms that automatically connect your systems together and make it one useful system, or gives you instant portal access to where you need to go. So I thought that was kind of cool. Or, the demo looked really cool. I mean, the actual work involved is probably much harder, but.
Is there something from Legal Week that you said, aha, I'm going to implement this right away, going back into your current role, or? do that.
I did work. I mean, some of the abilities I saw, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get an NDA and do a pilot because that looks cool. And I think, not to be flippant, but it's like, all right, now's my exploratory period. I might as well cash in while I can and say, I've got a little bit of money, I could do some pilots and embrace the agile mentality and just simply say, I'm just gonna build small, grow from there. I'm not tackling the world tomorrow. I just want a small island. So, but the workflow piece was actually something that I immediately said, yeah, I can use that and I know how to use it. So that's good. And I set expectations. I think everyone should now, like, if you're going to go into these types of things, like, set expectations small and then just build upward. I think the providers are becoming a little bit more aware that you're not going to get a big sale tomorrow, nor are we in half a position to make that decision to spend money. And we usually have to fight with our IT department over these things. So, and the best thing that some of them said, like, oh no, we're a service. We're all cloud-based. We don't need to interact with your systems. I'm like, it's music to my ears. That means I don't have to involve my IT, just my security group, give an assessment and then go from there. So, you know, it's helping them help you to make a sale. So.
Excellent.
Don't eat at Del Frisco's. It's just, well, gross.
It sounds like a great week. That you had.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
Anybody else get a legal week? Or I couldn't attend last week, but
We are just beginning to let folks go on go to conferences in person. So
yeah, that's a great point. Some companies are still moving towards the hybrid and the travel opening up. So anything more on maturity model, DEI model that we want to discuss? Those are the two key points I wanted to bring to your attention about those resource guides, because I do think that they're helpful.
Well, I don't have anything else, Gary. Does anyone have any other topics? Otherwise, we may be able to cut short today.
Yeah, it is in Pennsylvania here. It's almost 70 degrees, so it's very nice. Nice weather.
All my windows are open right now. It's very lovely. Jersey. Well, if that's the case, Gary, thank you so much for everything you've done for the group. And I wish you the best of luck in your new endeavor. You're always welcome back at the ACC. And I hope to continue on as good as you led us so far. So thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And I know you'll be fine as chair. And if anybody wants to raise their hand for co-chair, please reach out to Jack. He's ready. He's ready for for a volunteer.
Yep. Well, with that, thank you all very much. I hope you have a wonderful, bright, sunny day. It's gorgeous here on the East Coast. We'll see you next month.
thank you.
15 minutes back for this one.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.